for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida TV. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Friday, March 14. I'm not your regular host on Fridays, as it is Matt O'Han, but Matt is off tonight, so I am taking his spot in all transparency because I am going to be at the G League game right now. When you're watching this, the G League basketball game at Place Belle in Laval. This podcast today was recorded earlier in the day. And so we're going to get to that in just a second. At the time of this recording, before tonight's games, the Montreal Canadiens, with 17 games left in the regular season, the same as the Columbus Blue Jackets and the same as the Ottawa Senators, 6 points behind the Ottawa Senators. They'll play the Senators twice between now and the end of the season, with the next one coming up this Tuesday in Montreal. There'll be a game in Ottawa in April. 1 point behind the Columbus Blue Jackets. And by the way, Columbus and Ottawa will face each other 3 times between now and the end of the season. So it's going to be a very interesting end of the season. The Sick Podcast brought to you in part by Betway. Go all the way with Betway. Get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account. Redeem your welcome offer. Offer is only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offer is not available in Ontario. Must be 18 years of age and older. And please play responsibly. Also brought to you in part by Bittt, Tibi. They launched their new Ultra Lager, refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for chilly winter days with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can, available in packs of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. Ultra light, ultra refreshing. It's even going to taste better over the next couple of weeks because it's starting to warm up in Montreal. An ice cold beer will hit the spot. Stu Cowan is pretty much a regular on Fridays with Matt O'Han. I say hello to Stu from the Montreal Gazette and HockeyInsideOut.com right now. How you doing, Stu?
I'm doing really well, Tony. How about you?
Extremely well. You are a regular at Habs practices, of course, and you're there and you cover them, and you write the great articles that you do. The Canadiens moved their practice earlier today from a scheduled 10:30 a.m. time to a noon time. And based on the travel over the last couple of days, they played in Tuesday in Vancouver. They played Wednesday in Seattle. Time change, jet lag. I think that was a good move.
I actually thought Marty might even cancel practice today coming back. He's been canceling a lot of practices recently, and morning skates have been optional, just letting the guys sort of, rest as a weapon, they say at times. But making it at noon was a smart idea. Let the guys at the time change, everything else. 9 o'clock in the morning, still in their body clock.
Yeah.
So as far as coming back from the West Coast. So I thought it was a good move, and they had a high tempo practice. They were going pretty hard through the whole practice, which lasted about an hour.
I have 5 reasons why they didn't cancel practice today. You want to hear all 5?
Sure.
Seattle's first, second, third, fourth, and fifth goal. They gave up 5 goals in their last hockey game, and that's one of the reasons why.
I think, too, also, I think getting home, I mean, these guys have been away from their families for a while, obviously, also. Let them get up, have breakfast or whatever, relax this morning a little bit, get their bodies adjust to the time change again. And like I said, it was about an hour of practice and then the rest of the day off. And you say it was a beautiful day today in Montreal. So nice way to come back home and get ready for the Florida Panthers.
Before Canadiens practice, they let us all know that Josh Anderson would not take part in the practice today, a therapy day for him. He's been having therapy days for a couple of months now. Last year I said that I thought that Josh should have a hard time looking in the mirror. At one point, I didn't think the professional pride or the personal pride was at a level where it needed to be. We know he's got a real nice contract that pays him $5.5 million a year. Last year, nothing went right for Josh Anderson, but when things don't go right and you don't produce, you're supposed to do other things. He could still produce more. His production is nowhere close to maybe where it should be for a player who scored 27 goals 5 or 6 years ago. But he's putting his body on the line every game, I find. I'm really, really happy with Josh Anderson's effort level. And I think Josh Anderson proved a lot of things to a lot of people, and including himself, where he said to Jacob Trouba, you hit my teammate, and it was Justin Barron at the time, and they went into New York, you're going to pay the price. And he made him pay the price. And they were getting banged up pretty good in Washington. And he said to Tom Wilson, you're not going to go around doing this kind of stuff. He took on Tom Wilson, and he beat Tom Wilson in a fight. I mean, how many people would have said that, right? I mean, Tom Wilson is a tough customer. But Josh is so strong that if he wants, on any given night, I mean, it's not his role. But so I think he proved a lot to a lot of people and a lot to himself this year.
Yeah, and he had the game, it was against Vancouver, where he didn't hear the whistle, and he went in on, shot a backhand on the goalie, and somebody challenged him after he knocked him on his butt. I mean, last season, I think Josh Anderson was a mess mentally. I think it really started getting in his head that he wasn't producing. He said earlier this season how he shouldn't have been so down on himself because he was playing well early in the year. He just wasn't scoring, but he was letting it get to him. I think mentally he just got into a bad place. I don't think it was lack of pride or lack of effort. I think it was just that. And I think Marty St. Louis made a really smart move when he put him on the penalty killing unit to start this season, giving him an added responsibility, a little bit more ice time, a little bit more involved in the game, not sitting out as long. And here's a guy, I mean, he loves being a Montreal Canadien. He really does. His dad grew up in the West Island of Montreal, big Canadiens fan. Peter Mahovlich is a distant relative through his mom. He loves playing in Montreal. He wants to be in Montreal. He didn't want to get traded last year. I think we're seeing that. He got off to a better start this season. Physically, he's a big, strong guy. You remember that playoff run in 2021? I mean, it wasn't fun playing against him, right? He was a big, big, tough guy playing. No, it's not fun when he's coming in on a forecheck. And I'm happy to see him turn around this year also. He comes to play every night. And as you said, I can't remember last time he practiced. I mean, he's playing through a lot of injuries and banged up, but he's been able to – he shows up for the games. Hasn't been able to practice, but he shows up when the puck drops on game nights.
You know, Patrik Laine doesn't show up all the time, Stu. And I said this earlier this morning on my radio show is that, you know, I've said some things about Patrik Laine on my radio show on BPM Sports, Le Forum, Monday to Friday from 9:55 a.m. to 11:55 a.m. I've said stuff like Patrik Laine is a lazy player. He always has been. He always will be. He plays when he's in the mood. When he's not in the mood, he doesn't play. He's not a great 200-foot player. Doesn't sweat all that much on the ice. Not a very good defensively responsible player, but from a blue line in, very, very dangerous, especially on the power play, where he has a shot that is the hardest shot of any Montreal Canadiens player, especially forward that I've seen in my lifetime. And I've seen Sheldon Surrey shoot the puck, and Gaston Gingras, and Marc-Andre Bergeron, and you know, even Guy Lafleur and so many others. I think Laine has arguably the heaviest shot that I've ever seen. We know what he can do. We know what he can't do. I even told him, Patrick, you know what? You got the flu. Let's go. How many times are you going to have the flu this season? Shake it off. Take Pedialyte. Do what you got to do. Get some rest. Put some salts in you. Whatever you have to do, play. Having said that, in the media, especially in the Francophone media where I now work radio, they've been pretty tough on Patrik Laine in the last 36 to 48 hours. And I don't understand it, because I said my message to everyone who's been tough on him in the last 36 to 48 hours in the media especially was pick your spots. I mean, you want to criticize the guy, but criticize him after he plays bad or he does something terrible. Don't criticize him after what was a good game in Seattle. Played well in Seattle, Patrik Laine.
Yeah, he is who he is. I mean, the Canadiens knew what they were getting when they got him, and that's why they were able to get him for as little as they had to give up to get him, right? And they got a second-round pick coming back in that trade also. Marty spoke about him after practice today. They were asking about how you play him 5-on-5, and Marty said, I'd love to Laine wants more ice time. Marty would love to give him more ice time, but he has to get to the point where he can prove to Marty that he can put him on the ice when it's a 2-2 game or when you're ahead by a goal, and trust him. And he still doesn't have that trust, and I don't know if he ever will, because that's just the player Patrik Laine is. He's not committed defensively. As you said, he is a lazy hockey player, but he scores goals. I mean, he's got 15 goals this season and 12 on the power play. There's not, you talk about a shot.
Yeah.
Not a lot of guys in the NHL, you know where he's going to be, you know what he's going to do, and you still can't stop him, right? There's Laine, there's Ovechkin. How many other guys can set up in that spot? And you know he's there and he's still going to score. So he is who he is. And, you know, for Marty St. Louis, it's a challenge trying to get him to buy into this system that all the other guys in the team are playing right now. I mean, their forecheck is really important to the style of hockey that he wants them to play. And that's the reason why, you know, I've wondered how come he hasn't given Laine a chance on that line with Suzuki and Caufield. But you need somebody on that line who's going in hard on a forecheck, like what Slafkovsky does to you know, knock guys off puck and create chances. And we haven't seen it from him. But where would the Canadiens be now without all his power play goals? So they're in a, you know, he's almost a power play specialist. And, you know, he wants more ice time, and maybe he's been sulking about that a little bit. I know, but when he went to the Four Nations face-off, he said he was looking forward to getting more ice time with Finland. But you got to earn it, and Marty's not going to give it to him. And kudos to Marty. He's not going to pamper him. He's going to, you want more ice time, show that I can trust you in a tight game to put you on the ice. And so far, he hasn't shown that. And I don't know if he ever will.
I'll answer your question. How many guys can shoot the puck like that? A heavy shot like that and a precise shot that you know that he's going to shoot and he'll score anyway. I would say this year there's two guys that are in the top 5 for goals scored that I think do it pretty good. Pasternak and Tage Thompson, that they have a heavy shot. Over the years, Austin Matthews. Going back several years, Steven Stamkos.
Yep.
You're right. His shot is elite. It's lethal. It's absolutely lethal. It's elite, his shot. But everything that you just said, right, that Marty doesn't know if he'll ever be able to trust him to give him more ice time and 5-on-5 and whether or not he's defensively responsible. How does that play into culture?
Mm-hmm.
And because when we talk about Patrik Laine's future, he's going to have to fit into the culture.
Yeah.
And if he's not going to fit into the culture, well, then his future is not going to be in Montreal. So do you think that he's a bad fit for their culture? Do you think he can negatively affect their culture going forward should they commit to him?
I think it's possible because it's happened where he was before. I mean, you look at Columbus, and when he went back there this year and threw his old teammates under the bus the way he did,
they didn't like that, did they? They
didn't. I'm sure the Canadiens.
They made him a target. They made him a target.
I'm sure his Canadiens teammates and I'm sure Canadiens management didn't like that either, that he did that. It says a lot just about thinking about him instead of thinking about the team, right? But the Canadiens need goals. Demonov's coming here next season, right?
Yeah.
If Demonov can score the way the Canadiens hope they can score, maybe they don't need Laine's goals as much. You know, I do my weekly Habs mailbag for the Gazette and for Hockey Inside Out. And one of the questions this week, like, what do you do with Laine? And does he have a future? Do you let him go? Do you buy him out in the offseason? And I don't see that happening. But next year at the trade deadline is the time the Canadiens are going to have to decide what they do with him. Do we keep him? Do we move him? Until then, you know, they need goals. And as I said, without him on the power play, this team isn't in the mix right now for a playoff spot. And that has to factor into where they're thinking also.
Yeah, you brought up Demidov, so I'm going to go there. Brian Wild and I, we threw out a question yesterday. I'd love to hear you answer it. Brian and I had a different answer. I don't know if you saw our answer on social media, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
The next Montreal Canadian player to score 50 goals is?
I say it's Cole Caufield.
That's what I said.
Because he's already got experience. I mean, Demonov's got, 19 goals this year in the KHL? It's not like he's going to come in the NHL and score 50 goals next season or the season after. You look at Caufield, how he struggled when he first came into the NHL, also got sent down to Laval. So I think it's Cole Caufield. I don't know if Cole Caufield will ever score 50. You know, 40 is a big number in the NHL. He might hit 40 this year. He's on pace for 40. 50 is a big number. But if one of them is going to do it first, I'd say it's definitely Cole Caufield.
You know what? I agree with you 100%. I don't know how many times Cole Caufield is going to score 50 goals in his career, but I think he's going to do it at least once. I really do. I mean,
yeah.
Think about this.
Well, you know what? So we're talking about Laine before and the culture and everything else. You know, Marty St. Louis has always said with Cole Caufield, I'm not going to teach him how to score goals. He knows how to score goals, but I'm going to teach him how to play away from the puck and be a 200-foot player. And Cole Caufield has become that. Cole Caufield is a 200-foot player now. He's bought into the system. You watch him back check. You watch him forecheck. You watch him all over the ice. He's not just a goal scorer now. He's much more than just a goal scorer. He's become a really good all-around hockey player. And that's what Marty's trying to get into Patrik Laine, but it's harder to teach an old dog new tricks, right? Laine's been around for a while. He was the same in Winnipeg. He was the same in Columbus. He's been the same here floats around, does his thing, but when he gets a chance to score, he scores, especially on the power play. But with Cole Caufield, he epitomizes what Marty St. Louis is trying to build here culture-wise, as far as every guy giving 100% every time they're on the ice.
I think Caufield is St. Louis' greatest accomplishment. I mean, it's quite an accomplishment to be as comfortable as he is behind the bench, coaching an entire hockey team the way he has become just over 3 years into the job. But out of all the things that, like, he told us, I'm going to make him a 200-foot hockey player. I'm going to make him a better hockey player. Well, that's what we're planning to do. And he's done it. I think it's.
He still scores. I mean, he still scores. I mean, Dominic Ducharme was trying to do a similar thing with Caufield, but he wasn't playing 200 feet and he wasn't scoring. He just had him. Marty. One of the best things with Marty when he first came into this job, no NHL coaching experience, and he said his biggest strength, or one of his biggest strengths, is that he can relate to every single player on the team because he's been undrafted. He's been placed on waivers. He's been a fourth liner. He's been a healthy scratch. He's been everything. And he can relate to Cole Caufield. Marty St. Louis, Cole Caufield wore number 26 as a kid because of Marty St. Louis. Similar types of players, right? And Marty had to learn he had to be more than just a goal scorer to play in the NHL also. So I think when Marty's telling you stuff, especially for a kid who grew up wearing his number and idolizing him, there's a lot more power than Dominic Ducharme telling him to do something, right? And Marty, Marty's that's his two biggest gifts are that and his ability to communicate with guys. And he's done that with Cole Caufield. And as I said, you watch Cole Caufield, watch him back check at games. I mean, he busts his butt all over the ice. And he didn't necessarily do that when he first came in because I don't think he had ever been really challenged to do it. And Marty St. Louis challenged them, and good for him. And it's really we're seeing it pay off now.
Brian and I were saying yesterday, like the Canadiens' top line of Suzuki, Caufield, and Slafkovsky, they're top 3 in the National Hockey League for goals scored. They're top 3 in the National Hockey League for goals on 5v5. But they're a ways off from the line of Muller, Danfus, and Bellows that scored 110 goals back in 1993. Mm-hmm. And we're saying, can that line score more than 110 goals one year? And for them to do it, 2 players are going to have to score 33, and one player's, more than that. It's 110.
2 only score 40, and one only score 30, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
2 of them are going to have to score 40, and one of them is going to have to score 31 to beat the 110. Like, that's a lot of goals. And I said to Brian, Brian, there's a way it could happen. And he said, how? I said, Caufield can score 50. Mm-hmm. And, and that's the way. And that's
also a different game back then too, right? It was a more offensive game. But I mean, Suzuki, like I don't know what the ceiling is for Suzuki. You know what I mean? He's just every year he gets a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. I think he's plus 11 this season on a team that struggled defensively. He's playing against the team's top line. Talk about a 200-foot player. But I mean, he's been on fire since that Four Nations faceoff break. And the talk he had with Kent Hughes when he told Kent Hughes during the break, I don't want you to break up this team. And he said, well, you're the captain. Start winning some games. I'm putting on you. It's on your shoulders. And look how he's responded. So, like, what's his ceiling? Can he be a 40-goal scorer, Nick Suzuki? Maybe. I don't. He's more likely to be.
He had 33 a year ago.
Yeah, he's more likely to be the 60 assist guy, right? Than
yes.
That. But that line, 100. I mean, 100 goals. I can definitely see that line scoring 100 goals.
Yeah, 3 guys scoring 33, 34. We could see that.
Yeah, definitely. And Slafkovsky again. I mean, the other thing that Suzuki said before the break when they were 1-6-1 or 1-7-1, I think it was their last 9 games. He wasn't happy the way he played. He wasn't happy with his line played or the team. And him and Caufield and Suzuki got together and they spoke about it. And it's the thing with Suzuki. He's one of those quiet guys, but when quiet guys speak, people listen. So for Caufield and Slafkovsky, I was hoping to see Nick after practice today, and I didn't. I was going to ask him, like, what did you say to these guys to get this line going again? But Slafkovsky's picked up his game. Caufield's continued to play really well. Suzuki's picked up his game, and what a line that's turned into. And they're all young, and they're all under contract for a long time.
The Sick Podcast is brought to you in part by Playground. Playground, you have to visit them. Explore Playground's new 30,000 square foot expansion, thrilling games, gourmet dining, live entertainment, located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes from downtown Montreal. Playground, experience the strip without the trip. And I have to tell you that, exquisite dining, live music, electrifying DJs, they have it all, unmatched customer service. And once again, it's located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes from downtown Montreal. I go there a lot, especially on Saturday nights, especially right after the Montreal Canadiens games. It's kind of like a one-stop shop. They got a cigar lounge. They got some great restaurants, a steakhouse, sushi, fast food, and obviously music, entertainment. Absolutely fantastic. You're going to love it. If you haven't checked it out already, please do so. Also brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. Once again, if you're watching, Stu and I pre-recorded this before the hockey games tonight, and before the games tonight, the Canadiens 6 points behind Ottawa, 1 point behind Columbus. Mind you, Ottawa and Columbus did not play tonight, but other teams did, the Red Wings and the Islanders, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I recorded it because I'm at the G League game, basketball game at Place Bell in Laval. But thank you for watching on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. We talked about Patrik Laine before we started talking about some of the other players. We talked about the culture and whether or not it can negatively impact the group. And I was saying that, you know what, I've criticized them before, others have, but I don't understand the criticism the last 36 hours or so. I thought he played really good in Seattle. He scored that goal that you talked about. Yep. Seattle knew that Suzuki was going to pass Laine the puck at the top of the left face-off circle. He's a right-handed shot, tee it up for the one-timer. They probably also knew it was going to go upstairs, and it did. And by the time the goalie moved, it was almost in and out. It was unbelievable. And then on 5-on-5, Newhook does a lot of the play on this one, picks up the puck deep in his zone, goes all the way, speed through the neutral zone, passes it to Laine right before the blue line, makes his way into the blue line, goes down the right wing, straight line, and then boom, cross-ice pass that redirected by Newhook. We'll talk about Newhook in a second, but I want to get back to Laine. His contract, $8.7 million next season. Bob Hartley, earlier this morning on BPM Sports, tells Martin Lemay that, you know what? Personally, he says he would let him go. Not good for the culture. So I have to ask you, we'll get back to it. He's got a contract of 8.7 next year. Mm-hmm. What are the chances that the Canadiens know his strengths and his weaknesses? They know he is, like you said, he is who he is.
Yep.
If he's looking for a long-term deal, the way unrestricted free agents usually are, he's 26. He's going to be 27 in the third week of April. Do you see him re-signing with the Montreal Canadiens?
I don't see the Canadiens re-signing him. I wouldn't be surprised if, I mean, have they seen enough? They knew who he was when they got him, right? But they got him from next to nothing. And they got a second-round pick also. So I think they might have seen enough already to know, okay, maybe he's probably not going to change. And I wouldn't be shocked if they listen to trade offers this summer if other teams are interested. I don't know how many other teams are interested. You never know, but I'm sure Kent Hughes will be taking calls if anybody is. And a best-case scenario, it's all about asset management, right? So a best-case scenario is Laine plays well down the stretch here. The Habs get into the playoffs. He plays well in the playoffs as well. And then next year at trade deadline, here's a guy coming off a contract as a rental. It's going to have a might bring something good, right? Something, it'll be a high demand for a guy like that probably going into the playoffs, especially for a team looking for help on the power play. So I think hang on. The most likely scenario I see is them keeping him until next year's trade deadline, but I'd be surprised if they don't move him at next year's trade deadline, if not sooner.
It all depends. So,
but also remember, you mentioned Guy Lafleur. Guy Lafleur's career ended with the Canadiens because he didn't want to play defense, right?
Yes.
Jacques Lemaire.
Yeah.
So it's you gotta weigh and like it's hard to tell because Laine is sort of it's a different type of guy when you interview him. Like he's sort of like you can tell he doesn't really want to be there, doesn't really want to talk, and I don't know what it's like with his teammates. You know, they're obviously not going to say anything against him while he's here. I don't know how close he is with guys in the room. I don't know how that works out.
You just from the outside.
There's been problems. There's been problems where he's been before, and he's 26 years old, and he scores goals. That's what he does.
It's probably not a fair comment, but I'll say it anyway because, I'll preface it by saying that obviously it's a comment from the outside. We're not the inside. We can't be in his head. We can't be in his heart. So we don't know what he's thinking in his head, and we don't know what he's feeling in his heart. From the outside, you get the feeling that he's better at hockey more so than he loves hockey.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. Well, I mean, he was ready to give it up last year, right? When he went into his mental health issues and that, he lost his love for hockey.
Yes.
He said that he was ready to.
Stéphane Richer was. You got the feeling that he was better at hockey than more so than his love for hockey.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you compare the Laine Hudson.
Well, Laine Hudson,
and nobody loves hockey more than I've never met anybody who loves hockey more than Laine Hudson. I mean, today we go downstairs after practice. We go do the interviews in the locker room. We come back up. It's like 25 minutes after practice. He's still on the ice. He's still on the ice. They basically need to drag this guy off. We're talking about Laine, and you mentioned before with the flu and the Pedialyte and that stuff. I mean, I don't know. Flu bug going around apparently is pretty bad. Maybe he was sick in bed throwing up. Maybe there's just no way he could play. We don't know. But when you're missing a game with a flu and Josh Anderson, who can't even practice, and with whatever injuries is showing up and playing every game, you wonder how that plays in a room too, right?
Yes, unless they don't want him in the room during a game because you're going to end up giving the
well,
flu to
that's
everybody
possible
else.
too. I mean, you don't really know. So it's hard to say. But
I'll say this. You see, it's too bad that we're talking about this, okay? And I've
Nick Suzuki's never missed a game in the NHL.
Right.
I imagine he's had the flu a few times.
So I totally agree with you, okay? But in a way, and even though I've talked about this too, don't you find it's too bad that we're talking about this? Because let's go back for a second here.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a player who was hurt in preseason.
Yep.
Goes to the doctor. Team doctor says, you need to get operated. You're done for the season. Not happy with that answer. Goes to get a second opinion. I'm not happy with the answer of the second opinion. I go get a third opinion. Third opinion says, what do you want to do here? You really want to play hockey this year? I really want to play hockey this year. You can play hockey without the surgery. You can. I don't know if he's going to need to do something later on in life, but you can play hockey without the surgery. And this is the way we're going to go about it. And this is what your rehabilitation is going to be. Your recovery is going to be and whatever. But obviously, I don't know what percentage they told him that he would be playing at. He chose to do that. Maybe because he absolutely wanted to avoid the operation. We all do. But he also chose to do that because he really wanted to play hockey for the Montreal Canadiens this year. But yeah, we have some doubts when we talk about him. It's too bad.
Well, also the Canadiens were the only team willing to take his whole contract, right? That's why he ended up here.
Yes.
And Columbus also had to give up a second-round pick. And all the Canadiens gave up was Jordan Harris, who probably wasn't going to play here or be up and down anyway. So every team in the league, I'm sure Columbus was shopping around to everybody, right? And
yes.
There's a lot of baggage there. And Kent Hughes, to Kent Hughes' credit, I wrote a column at the time saying this is a low-risk move. This is a team that has to have more goals. They have to have more goals. And how often does a guy who's a previous 40-goal scorer, who's only 26-year-old, become available for nothing? Never, right? This is like almost a once-in-a-lifetime chance to get a potential 40-goal scorer for nothing. And Kent Hughes did it. And Kent Hughes took him. And as I said, he is who he is. They knew what they were getting. And again, the Canadiens are not where they are now in the mix for a playoff spot without Patrik Laine. And if they had him since the beginning of the season, maybe they're comfortable. They're not just battling for a wild card spot. Maybe they're comfortable in a playoff spot right now. Because I missed the first 24 games. Yeah, the way he's scoring, there's probably 10 power play goals in that, right?
And let's hold on before predicting that he's going to get dealt at the deadline next year, just before. Because 1 year ago, I don't know about you, but I thought Armia would be traded before the deadline. David Savard would be traded before the deadline. Christian Dvorak would be traded before the deadline. Evans, I wasn't sure. I thought he was going to be here for years to come. As it turns out, he is. They gave him an extension, yada, yada, yada. Mind you, it's funny because up until about a month ago, we actually thought there was more of a chance that Evans was going to get traded. And in the end, none of those guys were traded. So why? Because the Canadiens were in the mix. If they're in the mix next year by trade deadline, they're not going to trade Patrik Laine still.
No, or never mind in the mix if they're second in their division or something like that and going through. It's interesting to see. And the thing with Demidov I mentioned earlier, so if you have Demidov here and you have Caufield, then maybe you can afford to lose Laine or risk losing him for nothing, right? Although you wouldn't just lose him for nothing, you'd also gain $8.7 million in cap space, right? You look at it that way also if he leaves, you can go get somebody else. So it's hard to predict into the future when it comes to that stuff. And it's interesting to talk about Evans. I spoke with him after practice today, and he said it was so weird getting back home yesterday because he walked into his empty apartment with all his stuff in boxes and his wife's not there because she went to Toronto because she was so sure he was going to get traded. And he said it was just weird. He went back in my apartment. My wife's not there. All my stuff's in boxes. Because when he went to practice the day before they left on the road trip, nothing was signed. Like he says they were getting sort of close. He didn't know. And it was after practice that day before they went to the airport. He went up to Kent Hughes' office in Brossard and he signed the contract before he got on the plane. So he thought he was gone. His wife thought he was gone. His wife's going to be coming back from Toronto now He said they're going to start looking for a house now in the Montreal area. But yeah, he thought he was going to be gone. And it was sort of cool. As he said, imagine you get home to your empty apartment with all your stuff in boxes and no wife after being on the road for 12 days.
That's a crazy story. Do you think Alex Newhook is a centerman?
No, but he is now, right? They don't really have other options. And he's been working his butt off in that position. I mean, he's been flying all over the ice.
His last game was good. Marty
St. working with players, and one of the things he's tried to work on with Newhook this season is telling him you can use your speed not just on offense, you can use your speed on defense too. Getting back and backtracking and intercepting passes in the neutral zone. And we've seen that. And his faceoffs still aren't great. He's like 43%, I think, better than Kirby Dach in faceoffs. But he works hard. He's fast. I don't think he's a center moving forward. But for now, he is. And as Marty St. Louis likes to say, you can never have too many guys who can play center.
I'm going to answer my own question. I think he could be a third-line center. But I think he's more comfortable on the wing than Beck is or will be.
Yes, without a doubt.
Kapanen is or will be. Then going forward,
Yeah, Beck had never played wing. He said he played one game, part of the game on wing in junior. That's the only time he's ever played wing in his life before he came to the Canadiens.
So I think he's going to end up being a winger on the third line next year. But you know what? We'll have to wait and see. We'll finish it off with this, and what will be an abbreviated version on this Friday night, so everyone can absolutely enjoy their weekend. And it's calling for a beautiful day on Saturday in Montreal. I can't wait for that. Alex Carrier. Here's a move that if it would have happened on trade deadline day, we would have said that's a great trade deadline move. But it happened several months before that. So when on trade deadline, they didn't make a move. Some of us were pretty disappointed, hoping for at least a little something. Talk to me about the impact Carrier's had on this team.
Well, I looked it up, and on December 18th, when that trade was made, the Habs had a 12-16-3 record.
12-16-3. Let me write that down.
Since then, they've gone 19-11-4 with Carrier. Now, he's not the only reason, but he's a big reason. And how Kent Hughes was able to get him for Justin Barron is remarkable. This guy is, in Nashville, he had 1 goal, 6 assists in 28 games. He was minus 14. With the Canadiens, 2 goals, 11 assists in 34 games, plus 6.
I want to add something, though.
Him and Mike Matheson together are a fantastic pairing. They have been so good. Marty's had them on late in games when they have the lead. They've been so good together. And talking with Jaden Struble about Carrier this morning after practice, or this afternoon after practice, and you see Carrier in his shorts and a T-shirt. He's not a big guy. He's not a big guy, but he plays big. And man, can he skate? And I didn't know.
He's got a lot of heart.
And that's exactly what Jaden Struble was saying. He says he cross-checks guys, he battles guys, he wins battles against bigger guys. He's a competitor. He competes. He epitomizes the culture this team is trying to build.
Struble, by the way, is the guy that nobody's talking about that is playing much better hockey lately. The other night, he was very good in Seattle.
Yeah.
He was very, very good in Seattle.
Well, and Marty talked about Hudson after practice today too, and he said he is playing well. And the key for guys like him, young guys, is not to get content, not to get comfortable. I mean, that's sort of happened with Arbor Xhekaj, right? Last season when they sent him to Laval, maybe he was getting a little bit too comfortable, a little bit too content with. Says you got to still be striving to get better and improving. And if you have a good game but you made 2 mistakes, you don't just say, "Oh, I had a good game." You go back and you look at video of those 2 mistakes and you correct them. So that's what Struble's got to do. But he's been really good playing with Lane Hudson.
Let's say this about Alex Carrier, as Kent deserves a lot of credit. You're right. The Predators knew that if they were going to trade Carrier, he would have loved to have been moved to Montreal.
Oh, yeah.
His wife's a doctor.
Yeah.
Opened up a clinic here, and it would have made life a whole lot easier. And Kent probably knew how badly he would have wanted to come to Montreal too, being a client of Cortex Management. Yep. Just several months before actually Kent ended up becoming the general manager of the Montreal Canadiens. So they weren't together for a long time, and it wasn't his personal client, but through the firm. So,
and he knew he'd fit in the room. Jaden Struble was saying he's just a great guy. So he's a great guy. They sit beside each other at the practice rink. He says, fantastic guy. And you're right. His wife, I mean, when he was playing in Nashville, his wife would go live with him in Nashville when the Predators were at home. And then when they were on the road, she'd come back to Montreal work her practice here in Montreal. So she was going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth all the time. They already had a condo in the Lachine Canal, so now they live there 12 months a year. Yeah, but she was doing the back and forth thing. Was it 6 years he played in Nashville? So, and they've been together since high school.
Wow,
it's a really great story. It's just a fantastic story. Coming back home, his wife's already settled here. She's a doctor. He's a hockey player. It's just a really, really good story.
He's got to be the only Montreal Canadiens player that lives on Lachine Canal. Hey?
Maybe. I don't know. It's that area. A lot of the guys live around that area now, I think. The days when they all lived in the South Shore are gone. I think David Savard's the only guy still living on the South Shore. I think a lot of guys live in that Griffintown area around that part.
Oh, that's yeah, by Griffintown, correct. Yeah, they do. As a matter of fact, part of Caufield and Dvorak live there. They live.
Yeah, I imagine they're sort of in the same area. Well, it's funny too because I was talking with Kate and Gooley.
They're roommates, right?
They were last year. I don't know if they still are.
I believe they still are. Yeah, I believe they still are.
I was talking with Kate and Gooley last year. I was just shooting the breeze with him after a practice, and he was saying he was looking for a place and looking around the Griffintown area and maybe old Montreal. A couple of guys were there. And I was telling him, back in the day, a lot of the guys lived in Candiac, Carey Price, Paul Byron,
Shea Weber
still there, Shea Weber. There was a whole bunch of the guys there.
Yeah.
Gooley, I live in the South Shore myself in Brossard, as you know. And Gooley's told me, well, where's Candiac exactly? And I said, you don't want to know. Go live downtown. You're a young guy. Go live downtown in Griffintown or somewhere like that. Candiac was great for the
if you got a young family too.
And they had their own little community there. All the guys lived together. Byron's kids and Price's kids and Weber's kids were all friends. Savard's kids. They all lived in the same sort of area of Candiac. But I said he's the last one left there, and most of the guys are in the downtown area.
There used to be a couple back in the day that used to live in Nuns Island too. Remember that? Not too many of them do now.
Oh, yeah. Rick Green used to live there.
Max Pacioretty,
Chris Chelios,
Lars Eller,
Saku Koivu, Jose Theodore. Yeah, that used to be a big spot for the guys.
But nowadays with the practice facility being in Brossard and the arena where they play their games obviously being in downtown Montreal, like you're right in between both. It's a great spot, but.
Yeah, I lived in Nuns Island years ago too, and a buddy of mine lived in Nuns Island, and he worked night shift. And one day, December, January, whatever, he went to the outdoor rink, put his skates on, fire in the puck round. There's a guy on the ice, and it was Chris Chelios. And he never acknowledged that it was him. Like he just played, I didn't go, oh, you're Chris Chelios. And they passed the puck around together for 20 minutes or so, shooting pucks. And he never mentioned anything that, you're Chris Chelios. And he said it was kind of cool.
Who used to play ball hockey in the street with some of the kids in the neighborhood in Nuns Island several years back?
Who's that?
Radulov.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they must have loved that. Yeah,
Radulov.
Pacioretty told me a funny story about Radulov. He had a Christmas party at his house. He was living in Brossard. He ended up moving to Westmount, but he did live in Brossard for a long time.
After Nuns Island, yes. From Nuns Island to Brossard to Westmount.
So the day after the Christmas party, Radulov calls him and he says, Max, did you find my teeth?
Oh, wow.
So who knows what happened? He was maybe playing ball hockey with the kids and took the teeth out and couldn't find his teeth.
Did you find
a few days later, he still hadn't found them. So I don't know if he ever did find them or replaced them or what happened with it. But somewhere in Max Pacioretty's house were Radulov's teeth. His false teeth.
Some guys call other people up and say, did you find my wallet? Did you find my glasses? Did you find my keys? He says, Max, did you find my teeth? No better way, I think, to end the Sick Podcast on this Friday night. Stu, big game versus the Florida Panthers. Huge. And talking about huge.
Real good test for them.
Yeah, and Florida's so good, too. Like, they're just so good. I think the best team in the East.
And they had Brad Marchand. Can you imagine Brad Marchand?
And Seth Jones.
And yeah, they're a hell of a team. And it's going to be a great test for the Canadiens. A really good test. And whether they win or lose, I mean, I think they're going to show up and put on these guys want to be in the playoffs. And I wrote a column yesterday saying this season is basically already a success for the Canadiens. Their goal was to be in the mix. They're in the mix, 17 games left, 1 point out. But these guys don't want to hear that. They want to be in the playoffs. They want to make the playoffs.
I'm going to ask you one more question, but not before I give a shout out though to MFD Painting, Mitch Prue and family looking to get your home or apartment building painted inside or out. No job too big, no job too small. MFD Painting is a family business. They'll treat you like family too. Check out MFD Painting on Facebook or call them at 514-893-9856. Florida on Saturday, Ottawa on Tuesday before leaving for New York, where they play the Islanders next week on Thursday. In these two games, Florida and Ottawa, how many points for the Montreal Canadiens?
I think they have to get 2. I mean, if they lose back-to-back, they're going to be that could be the blow as far as staying. They'll still be in the mix, but it'll be a lot harder for them to catch up and get a wild card.
And if you want to get to, make sure the game that you win is on Tuesday night in Ottawa versus Ottawa here in Montreal, and you make sure you win it in regulation too. By the way, no points for the Ottawa Senators. Hey, Montreal, Ottawa, 2 games between now and the end of the season. Ottawa, Columbus, 3 games between now and the end of the season. It's going to be an amazing end of the season. They're in the mix. All right. Thank you, Stu Cowan. We'll talk to you soon.
Have a good weekend, Tony.
Have a great weekend, everyone. Special thanks to Betway, to Bittt Tibi, to Playground, to Energy Transportation Group. Special thanks to Shane Gaumont on Master Control. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple. It's our way of feeling the love. Have a great hockey weekend. Go Habs Go on Saturday night. We'll be back again on Monday, the Sick Podcast. One team, one dream. I'm Marinaro.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaVie.tv, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.